Hello everyone, it's Tuesday, January 3rd, the first trading day of 2023, and here's to hoping that 2023 doesn't look like 2022. Here's that year 52-week chart of the SPY right there where we had the high of the year on intraday, not on the close on January 4th. I think the closing high might have been either January, what was the close? 477.71. Yep, the closing high was on January 3rd last year. A closing high for the entire year was a year ago today. So let's hope that we have a better 2023. And we thought we were starting out pretty good. I mean, we got a good gap up, decent gap up in the morning, but we're in this range. You look. There's a lot of different ways to look at the markets, guys. You look at the long-term the long-term part that I just showed you on the weekly. I'm sorry, on the 1 year daily. Then you look at the 9 month, and it all doesn't look too good. But then if you're looking at like this part here, oh, we're looking pretty good. Depends on what your outlook is. Obviously, we all look long term for our investments, but we also look short term for trading. So you go ahead and put a couple trend lines here. We'll just tag that one, drag it over. We'll tag that one and drag it over. It doesn't really matter where you put it. We know that's a consolidation area. I mean, we got to get out of this consolidation, maybe above, like I said, 386, say 387, that's 386.58, and get above there and stay above this. Let's go with this closing low at 376. Like I said, we're not getting off any hint of where 2023 wants to go, but we're going to find that out pretty soon, I'm sure. Then you go to these if you're trading a little bit quicker, like maybe on a 15-minute chart. You see that's still in a range. If you go like to maybe let's see, we got an hour chart, still in a range, but not as much of a range. Well, yeah, it is. That's still where the range is. Anyway, you look at this, but you can still trade very small time frames. If we go to a 5 minute and look at this one, we got a downtrend that's trying to come back up. At the bottom of that range on that intraday chart. A lot of different ways to look at how you want to trade this. But I tried a little bit of a different approach today. After I do look at these indexes, I'm just going to see what was hot today because, I mean, the research I've been doing for a lot of years just on a Sunday or whatever, looking at what moved on the last week, sometimes doesn't mean a whole lot because if it doesn't move on the day you're trading it, it doesn't really matter. We have the things we looked at last week. We could still look at this week to see if they're looking good or if they've changed. We just add to our list as we go through here. So the SPY, we need to get that out of that range. The Qs aren't so much in a range, but they're at the lows, but they're recent lows. Hopefully they'll bounce. We basically have a downtrend line here. It was good to see we haven't been above the 80 EMA on the daily since December 15th. So it was good to see it push through, but we need to close over that on the Qs. IWM, again, that's pretty much like a range as the SPY is. So before we go to the list on the left, we'll look at what we normally look at, which is Apple. And that cratered today below 125. I mean, if we look at the weekly on this, we told you we're watching for maybe support at 116. I mean, it doesn't look like that bad of a chart, but that's as low as Apple has been since May of 21. So that's a long time that Apple's been that low. Oh, gotta love Microsoft. My MacBook is upstairs and I don't have this software on it. Then you go Amazon, which we know that wasn't looking pretty either. Actually popped a little bit today. Like I said, when we look at Amazon right now, we really got to go to a longer time frame. And look at stuff like this here. We're talking about maybe 65.70 being support down here if this doesn't hold. But as you can see, if you look at the weekly fib chart, we're at an extension. We got to come back up. And then you look at Tesla. Go to that 3-year weekly. We're still looking at 63 maybe, but we got the 1618 of that weekly fib sitting at 100. You know, this weekly hasn't reverted to the ADMA much yet, but the daily keeps bouncing off that on the way up. And then Google, which has gotten beat up to, just needs to hold that 83, 84 level. It needs to get back to 103, 104. So let's see what the movers were today and see if they're a tradable situation into tomorrow. So PayPal looks like it's getting a pretty good bounce. It was pretty good volume today, so let's check the news on that. 851, PayPal shares trading higher after Trust Securities upgraded. So they had an upgrade today, which doesn't, I mean, upgrades they can be followed through on, you know, was today. But if you look at the technicals of this chart, you're going to have some resistance at about 77 or 78 you could trade it to. And then you're looking to maybe get up to that 81.80 area. Wind Resorts, you know, none of these are really good charts, but they were moving today. Wind Resorts isn't horrible. Let's look at this on a longer term basis. Yeah, got that support slash resistance. It's called 80.81. If that holds, you could run up to 95, where these highs are right up in here. And Spotify, I think we have to look at on a weekly chart too, because that's a horrible chart. I don't know if this is a tradable situation anyways. Like I talked about in my last video, anything that's just getting down here and staying is not something you really want to mess with. Let's look at Meta. I know even though I wanted to skip it. We're not going to look at every one of these. So Meta's getting a bounce, but again, that's another one that's just dead in the water. I mean, there's no real movement except lower. Advanced Auto Parts, I know, is a horrible one. Square is one of those ones that's just, I mean, been hanging down here forever. Forever. Disney. You know, you like to see some of these bouncing in a day that the market's reversed after a good open. But again, until some of these charts get some decent action, it's going to be hard. So let's look at some other ones that I like to look at. MasterCard. Could run up to 362. Visa could run up to 217, 218. I think Walmart isn't too bad. No, that's not something I would want to trade right now. McDonald's below that 266, what I pointed out the other day. What was real weak today? Tesla was the weakest. Chesapeake looks like the energy area slash oil area was very weak. We got Chevron, Devon Energy, Marathon, Halliburton, Conoco, Oil, CVX, PSX, all those down here low. I can run a scan here to see what was. I could run a scan to see what that was in a squeeze, which I like to do sometimes. But I mean, there's no real good looking breaking out charts that are in a squeeze. But what I'm seeing here by the action of all the 200 or so stocks I got on my list that I watch, so we had some up, but most of the majority was between 2% up and 2 or 3% down. So what you want to do in these situations is find the outliers, or find something. You know, one of the better things to do is find stocks that you like to trade. Like, what is your favorite stocks to trade? Learn those stocks, learn their patterns, trade those on an intraday or a regular basis. Use your different charts. I'm going to actually play with my scalper trend intraday stuff. Let's go to this on a 1-minute chart. You see how I put the squeeze in here, added that to the list. We have volume. I'm probably also going to put my RSI in here, because when I said this before, when we were looking at this as a tradable situation, because you see this on a 1-minute chart. Let's back this out so we get the entire day in here. I think this is a good way to, if you want to be an intraday trader, again, not to play with a whole lot of money, even though it's the first day of the trading week, even though it's a Tuesday. This is like 11 a.m. That's 11 a.m. on the 3rd. So let's actually go out one more. Yeah, there's your drop. There's your day. So once we hit that bottom, let me pause and put this on. Okay, so what I wanted to do was add the RSI because if you guys were with me a while, you know my take on the RSI. Above the 50 line is bullish as long as it stays there, and below the 50 line is bearish. And you see that. Let's split this in half here because this was. So let me actually blow this up a little bit. So you see the RSI here starts out below, boom, 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 below, 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 and chopping around, chopping around, chopping around. That's when you can maybe trade from a bearish perspective, but it's still not trending. You got to combine what you're looking at here and what you see here. See, it's how it's trying to get above the line and then runs above it here. It just, as it trends below the 50 line, it is bearish. If it goes above the 50 line, it is bullish, but you want it to stay above it. You don't want this chop, so it's just going to be chop. So once you see the trend change here, it's still chop. Now let's put it to the rest of the day, which it wasn't chop. So there's where we ended. There's our run up. Still chop. Runs up. How do you know it's not chop? I mean, I'm only putting this on here because I want to make sure I have an idea that we have a trend and what the trend is. Because like I said, you don't want to try to trade these arrows against the trend. Like if you see that we're moving like this and you get on, this is noonish right here, then you jump on here at 1:13 or 1 o'clock, 1:30 when you're in here, then you see, take it like, that's like one, take it back to like one. So you jump on here and it's like 1:30, you say, well, that looks like a pretty good trend moving up in here. Okay, so you don't want to trade these down arrows on this setup because you're going against that trend. You wait for the down arrow, you wait for an up, trade that up arrow, trade that up arrow, trade that up arrow, trade this one. Again, you see those all work out pretty good, even though, again, it's hard to explain exactly where they form. But this is something I'm going to add to this as like the squeeze. You get the squeeze here and above the 50. That's a good, powerful indicator. Go with that. I'm playing more with this every day to get it the way I want it. And then I'm going to start trading with it.